JV, welcome to the Rich Inside podcast.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here, and hello to everybody who's listening. I love podcasting. I'm in my 11th year with my own show, but I love both sides of the microphone. I love being a guest and just hopefully bringing it so that it's going to really help entrepreneurs, going to help you if you're listening, grow your business, get more profitable, live a more purposeful life, because they're all intertwined.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with JV, he's actually the host of the Conscious Millionaire show with over 100 million listeners. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Conscious Millionaire, which is a title that I love. And he also works with entrepreneurs to help them scale their business by 50 to 200% in profit. So if that's not impressive enough, you just have to listen to his story.
Well, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm intrigued and curious what the conversation is going to unfold it to become.
Yeah, JV, the first thing that pops to mind is the Conscious Millionaire. So basically, you help coaches become more wealthy and create positive impact. How did this title come about? Conscious Millionaire. It's such a beautiful...
that's a great place to start. It was 2004. I had gone over to Reno for 6 months to ski for the winter. And I was just skiing all the different slopes. And it was about 3.5 hours to San Francisco. And in fact, nobody has asked this in years, so this is great. And I went over to San Francisco for the weekend, and they had, I picked up this about 100-page brochure, just out of one of those little racks, on the street, right? And it was for a green festival, which I knew absolutely nothing about. Ended up going to it, meeting some amazing people. Hazel Henderson, who became such a close friend and mentor. And I took it back, and I was renting a place that was very California. I had a hot tub, a fireplace, all that kind of stuff. And I got in the hot tub, and I was just leafing through it. Now, I'm very intuitive, and I get a lot of things in my mind's eye. I mean, I've made $100,000 in a day from knowing what option to buy and where to sell it at. It just appeared here. So this is very familiar with me. And I'm just looking at it, and I see the word conscious. And right here, Conscious Millionaire writes itself out. And I get a tingling in my spine, because usually I get a visual and a kinesthetic, and I go, I had been looking, I knew that I had sold companies. I'd become a millionaire at my 25. I'd sold companies, and I knew I wanted to work with entrepreneurs and help them become millionaires or wherever they wanted to go. But my story was, I grew up, we were really broke. At 5, I decided I was going to be a millionaire. In this little country town of 200 or 300 people, my mom said, don't tell anybody. So being a good 5-year-old, I went around the neighborhood knocking on all the doors and telling people, when I grow up, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I'm sure they rolled their eyes, because these people did not have abundance consciousness, right? It was like, oh, we'll just humor him. Okay. So at 25, I got there, 4-story home, Mercedes, trips to New York, Europe, all this stuff. But I was miserable. And 3 months into living in that home, and I had palm trees. I was right on the water, Tampa Bay, on Bayshore. And one day I was looking out at the sailboats and everything, and I had a meltdown that lasted about a minute, but I've never forgotten it. And I said to myself, I figured out how to make money, but I'm totally miserable. And you could ask anybody, I tried to date, and I'm horrible at relationships too, right? And all that was true. And I went out on a search, a spiritual search. And I was doing Deepak Chopra's books and Wayne Dyer and going to Tony Robbins and going to all these experiential things, going, what is the answer? Well, ultimately, took me a while. I figured out I wasn't living any purpose. I just had made money. Now, I got to tell you folks that I am not downgrading that experience, because I was all of a sudden living in the lap of luxury. And I was very clear I didn't want to give the money back, but I was also clear something was missing, that the millionaire by itself wasn't fulfilling. And I thought it was going to be the total answer, because that's what we're told. That's what, especially in the United States, that's the culture. Like if you just get money, your life is perfect. And I want you to know, if you just get money, you have money. And you can buy nicer things, but it will not make your life perfect. What I discovered makes your life purpose is discovering a deeper purpose, bringing that's what I help entrepreneurs do, bring that purpose into their business, and then I unlock their mind. I have 7 performance mindsets that I have formulas. I unlock their mind to connect with their mind and higher consciousness and literally start unlocking their potential. But that potential is always aligned with some reason for being on this planet. And when they bring that into their business and they start getting those potentials unlocked, which is the work, a lot of the work I do, then we can look at the strategies, then we can look at the execution, then we can look at the business model, and we can upgrade that. But you've got to first upgrade as the entrepreneur to bring your business up. And what most people try to do is they just look at the externals of strategies and execution, which is really 20% of the success, but it's what all the business books are written on. And they don't upgrade themselves. And so they're constantly in this tug-of-war struggle of trying to increase their profits. And I work with people specifically, the only people I work with is they're right up front. They go, I want to increase my profits and grow my business at least 50 to 200%, because that's exciting. But to do that, the fastest path there is to unlock them, so then we can unlock their business. But it has to happen in that sequence. It can't happen the other way around.
So then the question is, how do you unlock them? So what are the 7 mindset shifts?
Yeah, so, everybody, if you're listening, I know you've read a book on mindset.
Yeah.
And I love it when people say, oh, I don't need any mindset work. I don't need any of that internal stuff. I read a book on mindset. And I'm going, well, you might have read the book on mindset. But I'm talking to you and I'm noticing a whole lot of things in what you're saying that are holding you back, just the way you're verbalizing them. Like I need something, suppose I'm going to welcome it into my life. That activates a whole different energy. Right? And that's what we're really doing, is we're activating the energy that's around us to go like, well, if you want to attract ideal clients, you have to be friendly about it and go, I'm welcoming new clients into my life who are going to bring abundance to me, and I'm going to bring abundance to them. You're going to like, what's really going on here, folks? And when you just think of it as like, I got to close some people, like, that didn't even feel exciting. It's like, no, we all go through chapters in our lives, right? So JV 25 years ago was beginning to lose hair, right? That happens. $21,000 worth of hair implant. And because I have $21,000 worth of hair implant and decided to have a shaved head, I have to shave my head every 2 to 3 days. And I go, oh my goodness, isn't life funny? It's just so funny. But that was the right chapter then, and this is the right chapter now. By the way, if you've never shaved your head, I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a while, it really opens up this chakra, this energy on the top of the head. And because your hair holds old energy, so that's old thoughts, old emotions. When that came off, I immediately just started being more connected, getting more downloads. Being able to connect with that higher consciousness, that field. I talk about higher consciousness this way because a lot of people go, well, that's all woo-woo. No, it's not. What is higher consciousness? It's simple. It's higher awareness. It's awareness about yourself, about your clients, about your team, about the world, about how business operates, about how information occurs in the field, and therefore how you're growing your business. Awareness is power. So when you're tapping into higher consciousness, it is a field with which I am very familiar. And here's the most important part of it. That field that we can call quantum energy, field of abundance, limitless consciousness. We're all talking the same stuff here. That field, what is so important about tapping into it is that energy equals information. Look, you either have an iPhone or you have something like this, a Google phone, whatever. When Steve Jobs got the iPhone, he didn't do a focus group. He didn't go out there. Steve Jobs was a meditator, and Yogananda, the book about Yogananda, was given out at his funeral. It was the only book on his iPad, and it was the book that he read all the time. So he was meditating and connecting to these higher fields. And every visionary really gets the vision from up here. So he downloaded the whole idea for an iPhone, but then he used strategy and execution. There are only 3 ways to make money, folks. Took me a long time to figure that one out. And those are the only 3 things I do with all my clients. We work on your mindset, which is your internal world, which is connecting you to higher levels of potential. I work on your strategy. The most important strategy you have in your business is your business model. And strikingly, because I've worked with so many entrepreneurs, thousands, I have found that the business model often is the place that we have to really start the engagement on looking at your mindset and looking at your business model and what needs to upgrade on both. Because a lot of times people are not scaling because their business model wasn't designed to scale. So it shouldn't be shocking that you're having a hard time maybe going from $500,000 to $1 million, or $1 million to 10 million, or 10 million to 50 or 100 million. I mean, those are the kind of people I work with. And a lot of times we've got to look at their business model differently. But how much easier if you've upgraded and connected to more of your potential. It's like you have all these multiple new cameras looking at your strategy and go, oh, man, now I can see that my business model doesn't actually make sense, or it's overly complicated. I like to simplify stuff. Write this down if you're listening. I like to find solutions that have the least moving parts. I mean, if you can make X amount of money doing 3 things, why would you do 10? And yet I find when I start my engagements, usually we have to start with refining, because usually I work with people for a year, but we do it in 3-month segments. And in each 3 months, the first part is that we have to define the most important thing. What's your number 1 priority? And that number 1 priority should be the one that's going to move your business forward in the most meaningful way, and in the way that's going to affect your numbers in the most positive way, as fast as possible. And then we just get rid of the other things. And I would say the typical person I start working with, and it doesn't matter if they're 6, 7, or 8, everybody's playing the same game in their mind, is we're entrepreneurs and we come up with all these great ideas, and they are great ideas. The problem is we cannot execute on all of them. It's just impossible. And so someone will have 5, 10 different things they're working on. I go, no, I'm sorry. We're going to choose one, but we're going to nail it. So we're going to choose the one that really matters. And then everything we do for that 3 months is designed to get to that one outcome that's going to make the biggest difference. And that's going to impact your profits, because I measure profits rather than sales. Because look, if you're measuring sales, you don't really know what your costs are. You could bring in $1 of sales, but it costs you $1.50, because your cost of acquisition of the customer, your cost of delivery, your team, all of that might cost $1.50. If you measure your profits, you're going to discover that pretty quickly. You're going to go, I work with service and tech. Service and tech, I happen to love. I'm building a new tech business next year. I've built service businesses. One of the things I love is they have super big gross profits, right? As opposed to manufacturing or a physical product. These are low gross profits, right? I don't want to work with that. I want to work with high gross profits with people who really want to make an impact in the world, and they want to become wealthy. I have found that clients are not good clients if they come to me. This is a warning sign. So I'm just putting it out there. And if this resonates with you, then you might want to do some journaling. I journal every day. The people who come to me because it's conscious millionaire, and they're all on the conscious side. So they're all wrapped up in, I want to make the world better. I'm living my spiritual truth, and that's great. And then they say that one thing to me, and I go, I won't be working with you. Not now. And they go, but JV, I don't really care about making money. And I'm going, this thing called being an entrepreneur is about making money. The difference between a conscious entrepreneur and an entrepreneur who's just conventional is that the conscious entrepreneur wants to make money, they want to become wealthy, and they want to make some positive impact in the world that resonates in their heart. It's part of their purpose for being on this planet. My purpose for being on this planet is awaken people to their higher potential and then teach them to do something with that. And that's the only people I work with. That's my for-profit Conscious Millionaire. I have a global nonprofit, Conscious World, works with 18 to 25-year-olds. Our target for 2030 is to be working in 100 countries. Thanks to the metaverse, that's actually probably going to be pretty easy. Training them to be conscious leaders to create a world in which all life on this planet can thrive together. That's my heartthrob. And so I measure things like, how do I use my time and energy? So I go, you can't use your time and energy to do anything that doesn't further that. People tapping into more of their potential, building businesses that really make an impact on the world, and training you to be conscious leaders, because that's the future of how we can have a world, which I genuinely believe the resources are available if we organize them correctly. And it doesn't mean that we aren't capitalist. I am a capitalist, but I'm a second stage capitalist. I believe that you, others, and society should all win together, that everybody should be winning. And that's the form of capitalism that I hope to see is really going to be the future of the whole planet. Because then everybody's winning. And guess what? When everybody wins, doesn't it make sense that you as the entrepreneur would win bigger than if you're just trying to get all the marbles, you know? And I'll call it out, Amazon, okay? Amazon is a company that isn't all that conscious in how it's organized. And I use it as an example because it's so obvious. The workers that are putting together all the boxes filled with things that are sending to you and their distribution typically make about $15 an hour. Well, in an area like Denver, if you make $15 an hour, you need 2 or 3 roommates just to rent the apartment, right? So they really aren't winning. But that company could be reorganized where Jeff Bezos could actually make more money. Jeff, if you're listening, I'm just saying this to you, right? You could make more money if you were celebrating the success of everyone and everything was arranged so that everybody made more money. Like, what if that person who was making 15 could easily make 20 on bonuses for doing something that actually made the company better? And what if the company were giving bonuses like that to their clients, that they were just looking at, well, how does everybody win? How is society better off? How is humanity moving in a positive direction? You know, those are the kind of questions that the clients I work with, those are the kind of questions they're grappling with, and they want answers to them. But the important part here that I was, hammering on is that if you only have the conscious part and you don't have a drive to make money, that is not an entrepreneur. And every entrepreneur I personally know, every entrepreneur I've ever in any way coached or trained who is successful, and especially mega successful, are genuinely driven to create wealth. Now, in my case, in 7 years, I want $100 million. I know exactly what I'm going to do with it because $80 million is going to be used to fund my global nonprofit, give to other conscious causes, and invest to create more money to do that, right? And $20 million is so that I have a lifestyle that I can spontaneously do whatever I want. And I find, and I want you to hear this if you're listening right now, that being in luxury, being in with positive art, with quality food that costs money to eat in a high quality way. All these things cost money, but that can uplift you so that you can perform at your highest level. It isn't just how do I buy stuff? I don't really care about stuff anymore. You know what I like to buy? Experiences. Experiences. Like, what is an experience that I can have for a vacation that is going to really uplift me because I'm going to learn things, I'm going to experience things that I've never experienced before that are going to bring me to a higher state, literally, of consciousness, of living, of well-being. Well-being is so important for entrepreneurs that I've added it to all of my programs, private or group, have aspects of them that deal with people's well-being. Their exercise. If you want to work with me, there's a form you have to fill out, and 3 of the things you have to tell me about every session. I was meeting with someone yesterday. How many times did you exercise? I require a minimum of 3. More is nice. How many days did you meditate? Right? And I ask that everybody get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Because I used to be the entrepreneur at 1 a.m. and I know there are people listening that are the same guy as I used to be, or the same woman, that at 1 a.m. it was pizza time, right? And then I'd go to bed after I ate my pizza. And I had, really uneven, and I was eating a lot of sugar. And I would have uneven energy the next day, up and down, up and down, up and down. You know what? I go to bed and I sleep at night. And I get up in the morning. I cut out the sugars. My energy is the same all day long. I have high energy. And so I train my clients. I want you to perform at your highest. Well-being is part of your performance. You are never going to perform at your highest level and build your best business and become the wealthiest and be happy and fulfilled and healthy if you don't take care of your well-being. It's an incredible part. The quality of the food you put in your body, being on a diet that's right for you. That I do a vegetarian keto. I call it a vegetarian keto diet because a pure keto diet, you need like maybe 125 grams of protein, but that's all you're focused on. I like a lot of fresh vegetables. So I'm focused on, I want a high protein vegetarian diet that's very low in carbs, right? And I'll frequently take 3 tablespoons of a very high quality olive oil during the day. And that's really good for your heart. It's good for all of your system inside. And just drink a lot of water, drink tea, make yourself super healthy. And it's going to make a difference in how you build your business, because I'm all focused, all in on a performance. How do I help people, entrepreneurs, to perform at higher levels? And everything I do is to unlock their brain, unlock their mind, helping them with their strategies and execution. But they also have to have a personal well-being. And I find a lot of the clients who come to me, one of the things they really want is they ask, JV, how can I run this business, make a lot more money, and have 10 more hours a week to spend with my kids and get to see them grow up rather than missing that? They want time for their family. They want time for their friends. They want time for whatever their hobby is. Maybe they like to go running or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They've come to a conclusion that their life oftentimes isn't working. And so we work on their business and their life because they're intertwined. You can't build your greatest business if you aren't building your greatest life.
JV, this is so much value, and there's so many points that came up to mind spontaneously that I want to cover. One of them being committing to one thing, right? Because we have so many things we could do, potentially. And I want to see, how do you commit to the thing that's aligned with your higher calling? What's the process that goes about deciding what to focus on and what not to focus on?
Sure. Well, when I start an engagement, first of all, I give people a lot of time with me the first month, much more than they're going to have ongoing, because we're going to dig down. And there are 2 things I want to understand. I want to understand how their mind works. So we're going to do a lot of exploring their mind, asking them questions, and just listening to their verbiage and how they put the words together and how those words are actually holding them back or empowering them, and doing a lot of tweaking with that and using those 7 performance mindsets. I want to go through those with them. The second thing is I want to really understand their business. And typically most businesses, 6, 7, 8, it doesn't matter the size, the same process is typically going on. You typically have 2 or 3 major problems going on that are holding you back. It may be bottleneck. I'll give you an example, because one of the areas I'm really highly skilled in is I build a company with 50 people, is vetting the right people and then training and your team and building the right culture. So that could be something that's holding you back, is that you're constantly saying, I delegate stuff, it doesn't get done. You might have not vetted the people. You might have hired people and they don't actually have the skills, or they don't have the values that match the values of your business, or they're not someone who is a collaborative person. Instead, they're trying to hug all the power, right? So they can look good, right? And so we have to analyze, that's just an example. We go, well, out of all those, say 2 or 3 problems, or major problems, which one is the biggest? So then we're going to look at, well, here's where you are now. Let's just say you're at $1 million, you want to be at 2 million in 12 months. Okay, so that would, right? So we're going to go, well, what's going to really make a difference over the next 3 months? What do you need to focus on? Another problem you might have is you just have too many offers, right? You can't market all those offers and you can't deliver all those offers. And it's really a waste, because also when people have 10 choices, it's a lot harder for them to make a decision than if you only have 2 or 3 choices. And those 2 to 3 choices maybe complement each other, right? So there's one that would be obviously the right choice for any given client. So we're going to find out what's the number one thing that needs to change in terms of your business problems that's holding you back. We're going to look at where you want to go. And together we're going to discuss, well, what would be, because this is a discussion, and the discussion part is as valuable as knowing what that number one priority is. Because a lot of times it's really the experience of an entrepreneur, sometimes for the first time, having to get crystal clear about what really matters. Because when you have 10 number one priorities, you don't actually have to make any choice. But when you have to make a choice, you've got to throw out things and you've got to focus on one thing, and you get clarity. Oh, this is what's the number one thing wrong with my business right now. And so we got to fix this. And along the way, so once we do that, then every strategy we create during that 90 days is going to be aligned with that one outcome. And that includes shifting. Here's how I look at it. Here's your brain. Here's your mind. Here's that infinite field, call it the quantum field. So your brain is biological, but your mind is an energy field that's around your brain. So we got to find out what about your mind needs to shift, because it's in the way. But we're going to shift it in a way that goes only towards that number one priority. So we're only going in one direction, and we're going, well, when you tell yourself it's going to be hard to find enough clients, guess what? It's going to be hard to find enough clients, because that's how you set yourself up. That's how you're looking at the world. That's how you're looking at opportunities. That's how you're looking at your potential. That's how you're looking at the client field. So I will work with him, and we'll change that into not just a belief, but an experience, so that they start experiencing from the inside out what it's like to welcome more clients into their life, as opposed to, I've got to go out and get them. Do you see how that's a very different energy? I've got to go out there. I've got to strive. I've got to put forth all this effort. And on top of that, you've decided it's going to be hard because there are probably not enough of them, or you don't know where to find them. Well, you have set yourself up for failure. And this is why your profits aren't growing. So that's why you've got to change. But when I listen to people, I'll go, oh, say that sentence again and change that one word. Because I'll feel both the content and the energy of the word. And then I'm also overlaying it with 9 years of NLP training. And so I'll be listening for how the syntax is put together. And I go, let's change that, see what happens. And all of a sudden they go, oh, this doesn't feel so hard anymore. And I go, that's right. And if it's easier, don't you think you'll bring more clients in? And if you bring more clients in, especially the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to pay you the most, so you want to go focus on that first, go focus on where's the real money, don't you think your profits are going to start to soar? Doesn't that make sense? But if you're not looking at you and you're just looking at, oh, I've got to try another marketing strategy, it's the marketing strategy that's wrong. No, it's you that's wrong. And as I say, you may need a new marketing strategy, but until we up-level you, you're not even going to know what that marketing strategy is. Because you're going to see the world and you're going to see opportunities very differently. Opportunities is one of those areas that I unlock in people. But the biggest one, since you had asked earlier, that I get such fast results out of the 7 is I shift people's identity. And I do that very rapidly in a session early on with every client, so that their identity now matches this higher. So here they are here, and they've got this higher outcome they want. And when I shift their identity so it's a match, all of a sudden they can see themselves going there because they're realizing that, oh, maybe they need to delegate. And it's just not something they've ever done, right? Or maybe they need to follow through and they realize, oh my God, I don't follow through. I like start all this stuff, but I don't take it to completion. Or I start talking to someone, but I don't go back 3 more times. And so when they start looking at their identity, they change the qualities of who they are. And when you change the qualities of who you are, all of a sudden you become the person who can make that 2 million in 12 months rather than just being, because whatever you're manifesting right now, that is your identity. So we have to change your identity for you to achieve something that's 2 or 3 times where you are right now.
So changing your identity is the first step?
Changing your identity is something I do early on in the first month with everybody, because I want to free people. I look at it this way. Listen, we all have our movies we love. So whatever we've been informed with, it impacts, if we're a coach, and it impacts how we look at the world. Living at a Buddhist monastery where I meditate as much as 12 hours a day, and meditation, I was told, when I got there, I had a meditation instructor. And the first thing I was told is meditation is just the practice of being present. And so I realized how important being present is in order to see the world the way it really is running, so we can make better decisions. Which is why I require, if you're going to work with me privately, you've got to meditate. It's just, I only require 3 times a week, but a lot of people very quickly get to do 6 or 7 times a week. Because I go, if you're not present, you can't make good decisions. And the thing of being an entrepreneur is having the awareness at a higher level so you can make good decisions. That's the business you're in. I mean, yes, you're solving people's problems, but you're making decisions every day. You want to make the highest and best decisions. You can't do that if you're looking through a little box. You've got to expand it. So sometimes people will say, like, it's fun because I'm used to the certain patterns show up. Oh, I don't have time to meditate. And I go, no, you don't have time not to meditate. Your meditation, even 5 minutes will open your mind so that there's more space. And if you want you want to get a better idea, because these better ideas are actually floating around you, right? And you want a better idea, you got to open yourself to receive it. Because receiving is a big part of this. My favorite area to teach, and it's one of the 7 performance mindsets, is flow. And I have said for 10 years, if there's only one thing, I live in flow. I live in a sea of synchronicity. Things happen almost like a miracle all day long. All of a sudden I'm on a call with somebody and it's completely different. Yesterday I had a Zoom meeting for 30 minutes with someone who had been on the show. And I thought they might be an ideal client, but I quickly realized, no, they were doing what they were supposed to do. But that Zoom call went for 90 minutes, and they ended up giving me some impromptu coaching from their perspective. And I'm going, hey, I'm coachable. Let's go. And that changed some of my perspectives. And that call had been set up for 2 or 3 weeks, but it came on the exact right day at the right time, and we both had time open. And it was very clear that we could send clients to each other because we were doing very similar things, just working with different target markets, right? But it was also useful for me to have someone else coaching me for like a half hour from their perspective, because it helped me see myself from a different perspective. I'm always looking for coaching, and I tell people that you've got to have a coach, a mentor. I think of myself really more as a guide, because I ask people, here's where you're at, where you want to go. All right. My job is to guide you there. That's really what I do, is I'm guiding people on a journey to get to where they want to go. That's very different than where they are now. Oftentimes the people I attract want to go someplace they've never been before. They may not even know when we meet each other what that is, but they just know, I've got to play bigger. I'm playing too small. There's something I want to accomplish that I haven't. And that's where that performance comes in. And as I say, athletes need a performance coach, so do entrepreneurs. You cannot perform at your highest level. You cannot achieve those outcomes that you really want that are significantly beyond wherever you've achieved before if you don't have somebody working with you on performance, because that's what it's all about. The way you get rid of the business limits, the way you get rid of your personal limits is to perform at a higher level.
So let me dive into that area. Imagine a solopreneur. Okay, so not a huge business, but a solopreneur that has to make a decision on what to commit to. So imagine he has a podcast, and he has a social media agency, and he has this, a course, and that, and that, and that. So how do you decide, and that example is actually me, how do you decide which one is aligned with your soul calling and has the ability for financial generational abundance?
Right, great. And that's a fabulous question because, and you've hit on the two things that you must both talk about. Like, what's my internal purpose? So you get a clear outcome that you're on the planet. I'm trained as a tax attorney, so I'm a numbers guy. I like to measure everything, even spiritual things, and higher conscious experiences is that I go, okay, that was an interesting experience, right? But here's the first question I ask when I have, we can call them miracles or just, an opening, a download, an insight I'd never had before. I go, how do I duplicate that process? What was the process that went on? And I use a lot of NLP on spiritual and conscious stuff, right? I go, well, it looked like this was the sequence of things. If I do that again, will I duplicate it? And if I do that with a client, will it duplicate it in them? And I start exploring that. So the first thing is to get a measurable outcome. Like in my case, I'm here to awaken people to their potential. And I can measure whether we're getting to more potential or not getting to more potential. Is to get clear about what is that one umbrella thing that you're on the planet to do.
And how do you figure that out?
I actually have a whole process for that. I know that'll shock you, but I've got a 3-step process I take people through. I have never failed getting people to deep purpose within 2 to 3 sessions because I've got it figured out how to do that. As I go, it's not my place to tell you what your purpose is. That's not what I'm going to do. It's my place to facilitate the process so you can discover it. So that's a upfront thing. If somebody's not crystal clear about that, we're going to get crystal clear about that. Then we're going to start looking at your numbers. What is it that you really want to accomplish? And what's the least number of things you could be doing in order to accomplish that? And ideally, everything, like I'm reinventing my own podcast and we're in our 11th season, right? Is that I'm reinventing it to be aligned with this focus on performance and also to start having a lot of guests that I'm going to coach them during the call, so because cool. I like doing that. And that will take the after, I would just say, after you've done 3,000 episodes, if you ever find yourself in that position or probably long before then, because I've reinvented things a lot of times, usually once a season, I create new questions and things like that, is that you're looking, it's kind of like my client. I'm the avatar for my client. I'm always looking for something I haven't done and how do I get there? And I do that also with my podcast. So I'm about to make some big shifts on my own podcast about who even I have on the show, what's the process going to be like. It's still, you want to create wealth, you want to make a positive impact. We're going to talk a lot more about performance. How do you get to profits? So then we would look at what are all the things you're doing and what's the outcome you want? And are they all serving it or even necessary? Maybe there are more things going on, and so it makes it very difficult to market this, and this. Right? So what's going to be the most efficient? And for efficient, I mean least number of parts and effective. And by effective, I'm talking about speed because I'm enamored by speed. How fast can we get you to where you want to go? Like if you can get there in 6 months, why would you take 2 years? Right? And just get a blueprint of what your business should be to get there the fastest with the least number of things to do.
JV, for someone listening, he's wondering...
Did that help you? I want to know, or did you need something else?
Yeah, so if someone's here and he has a higher calling, right? He knows he has something.
And everybody has a higher calling.
Everybody has
just whether we're aware of it or not. Just whether we're aware of it. I don't think there's anybody on this planet by accident.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people that have achieved the million, that are obsessed by the millionaire part, but the higher calling part and aligning with that, this is where they miss it. So then they're trying, but it's not fulfilling. They're not getting results because it's not truly what's meant for them. And so my question is, how do you commit? So what are the 3 steps basically to commit to your higher calling?
Sure. I'll take you through the 3 steps that I use to help people discover their higher purpose. The first one is, and I've been doing the same process for 10 years and it still works. So I haven't tweaked it that much because it works, is look for an activity, because this is going to give you a clue, an activity that you're so passionate about. This is a passionate activity that whenever you're doing that activity, and the emphasis is on it's an activity, you get lost in time. You think it's been 30 minutes and it's been 4 hours. The second part of that passionate piece is that you actually go through a state change. Your musculature, how the blood's flowing through your veins might change, and your energy that you're giving off changes, right? You've gone through an energy state change. And if you see somebody, they would probably even be able to comment, wow, you look totally different. You're in really an elevated state, right? You're in a high vibrational state because you've been doing something you're totally passionate about. And here's the third thing that is almost always true. You do it for free at times, even for strangers, because you love doing it. Like, I'll just stop and coach people for a moment that I don't even know, right? Because I see an opportunity to awaken them to some part of their potential, and then they could go use that. I'm just listening to them. So that's the first piece. Then the second piece is, well, how would you like to utilize that to make a difference for a particular group? Now, the way I look at that is your purpose. People think their purpose is about them internally, but their purpose is an outward expression of who they really are, and who they really are at a deep soul energetic level, right? We're not talking about who your flesh and bones are, who you are at essence. But it's always, your purpose is always about making someone or something better than it is right now. That's always true. In my case, I love working with entrepreneurs and young leaders. Those are the people I most want to work with. But I feel called to work with those people. But I'm doing really the same thing with both of them. It's just over here, we're going to make money out of it. And over here, we're going to change the world. But we're doing the same kind of process, right? And as I like to put it, there are probably 100 niches out there you could work with. So you're going to find the niche you want to work with. So for me, it's service and tech, because I love both of those kind of companies. And it's people who want to, really, if I look at what's the 3 things they want more wealth. They want to somehow make some kind of positive impact that is really going to be fulfilling to them. And typically they want to go achieve something they haven't achieved before. I mean, let's just think about it on a simple level. Why would you hire a coach or a mentor, or as I like to think of myself, a guide, if you didn't want to go someplace you hadn't been? And if somebody can't take you someplace you hadn't been, why are they coaching you? Like, more of the same is not very interesting for me and it's not very interesting for a client either. So then here's the 3 characteristics of choosing that niche you want to work with. And that could also include, like, I generally work with people, they have to have $250,000 or more. So they're starting with usually the beginning of a team, or if they've reached 1 million or more, they're in the 7 figures, they've got a team. and I know that certain things are going to go on as they go up there. Like they're going to have certain problems with their team, certain problems with the culture, certain problems with a business model that got you to 3 million won't necessarily get you to 10. You might have to go in and tweak the business model because it's not scalable anymore. Or it might be scalable, but it's slow scalable and you want fast scalable. So when you're looking at that group, here are 3 questions to ask. And this is all part of that purpose because you want to translate your purpose into wealth and impact. That's the game I play with people, right? There are other games. If you just are on a spiritual journey and going to someone who's going to take you on a spiritual retreat, their definition of how you're going to utilize your purpose might be different. Mine's very practical. Entrepreneurs want to create wealth. They want to create impact. They also want to get a fulfilling life. So how you organize the business so you've got that 10 hours more. But here's the 3 questions to be asking. Does that niche have an urgent problem that they want solved? And the other side of it is when you're starting with purpose, you're really starting with a solution. When I got my MBA, what they taught us was a very 3D approach. You go out, you find a need or want, however you want to define that, an unmet need in the marketplace, and you build a solution for it. When you start with purpose, you're actually starting with the solution. Now you're looking for somebody with the problem that you can solve, living your purpose and using, because another part of this is your skills. What are your skills that you have? So you look at, well, what is that problem they're urgently wanting to be solved?
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, is that a good match for the solution you provide? And are you personally going to be excited to wake up in the morning and solve that specific problem? Bearing in mind, there might be 100 problems that you could solve with your solution. But you want to work with a group that you're excited to work with. Next, do they have the money to pay you what you've decided to charge? I have a whole model for what you decide to charge. I think it should be based on ROI. And that's why what I charge with one level of person and what I charge with another level can be different. It's not a flat rate. I'm charging based on the outcome I want to help you achieve, right? And if you charge, if you have clients with higher outcomes and more resources, then that's a different fee because you're really charging to help them get to that outcome. But do they have the money? I'm telling you, and I've had the personal experience through the learning curve, is that when somebody's struggling for money as an entrepreneur, they're in a total struggle stage, they really are not the right client for me right now because they can't pay me.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a struggle, and even making the first payment, if we, people can pay me up front, they can pay me in payments, whatever works for them. So you need people who have one level of success and some cash flow from it when they want to go to another level. So you have to be sure, are they really capable of paying you the fees that you think that are right for the work that you're doing, or the product, by product, I mean, it might be a course you're selling them. It might be a group that you're selling them. It might be a software that you're selling them, but are they a good match for that? That's all part of the purpose piece that I do with people, because you've got to translate the purpose into wealth, into impact, and ultimately into a fulfilling life. Because if you're just working 6-7 days a week, you missed your kids. Why did you have kids? You really wanted to spend time with them. You had kids because you wanted to enjoy their growth. You wanted to be there to mentor and coach them at their Little League baseball or whatever it is they're doing. You wanted to be there just to have fun, whatever that is for you all, to have the Saturday night party. That's the family party. Whatever that is, I find that entrepreneurs are fulfilled if they have time for fulfillment. And that's an important part. And I find that entrepreneurs will actually perform at a much higher level and make more money if they have time for reflection, for going for that walk in nature, for just having the personal time to sit and journal or just be. They don't have to do anything and just be.
That's
all of
not
that. Yep. I frequently notice, I live where there's a lot of nature out in the Rockies. When I'm in nature, my intuition is higher, and it's already pretty high, and it's different in nature, right? And I might go to the art museum, because I like art, and just walk around the art museum for 2 or 3 hours and get an amazing idea for my business that's much more profound than just sitting at a desk. I find a lot of times my best ideas about how to grow Conscious Millionaire, what to do next, or how to reach out to the right clients, or whatever it is that I'm solving at the moment, come in a not traditional working environment. Right? Or come after I've meditated, because I've opened my mind space, and now some new ideas can come in, and they come in and I go, oh my God, that's a great idea.
You talked about downloads.
Yeah.
I find that topic fascinating.
Yes.
How do you open up the downloads like Steve Jobs did and got this crazy idea to do the iPhone? How do you do that?
Sure. Well, the best way to get downloads, and it's a place that I live, so I experience this. And by the way, I want to say, it's not just Steve Jobs. If you talk about, I happen to like classical music, I happen to like jazz a lot. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, we should use that as an example. These inspired composers from the past or the present, the inspired singers that get amazing lyrics, these come as downloads because they are connected to that bigger field. The best way to do that is to get into flow. I'm going to tell you the 3 steps I teach people. And I've taught this to thousands of people, and I've never found that these steps didn't work. What I find is they work better in some people than others, and that's people who are really open to receive and are open to the whole idea of, I want to get into flow. To me, flow is the ultimate performance state. That's why I teach it to every client I work with. So the first step, and it relates back to the meditation. What does meditation teach you to do? Meditation is the practice of being present. The first and most important step for getting into flow, anytime, anywhere, is to just get present. And the easiest way to get present is to take 3 deep, relaxed breaths in, and this, allow yourself to let go and release. And if you do that, and it takes a minute, anytime, any place, you will begin to get into flow. There are 2 more steps that make it even more profound. One is that, and it's interesting in my book, the book Conscious Millionaire is 320 pages and 14 chapters. And I wrote that book over 7 years. I'm writing another book. I don't plan to spend 7 years. I've learned a lot. In fact, I rearranged those chapters. If you're writing a book, I rearranged them and rearranged them and rearranged them and, took parts in and out of chapters. And ultimately, there were 2 chapters I said, well, these have a relationship to each other. What's the best way to do it? Well, chapter 6 is all about how to create your high performer day and how to get the maximum targeted. You can only have 3 purposes in that formula for your day, and how to get the biggest impact in the day in terms of the outcomes you're going to get that are measurable, and those at the beginning of the day. So that's a high structured way of looking at your day. And I ultimately made that chapter 6, and I made the chapter on flow, which I called Millionaire Inner Zone, chapter 7. And in the first paragraph of chapter 7, I said, okay, this is where I must explain the relationship between this. On one hand, you're getting structured, you're going to do this, you're going to take these steps, and it's all written out. And on this other hand, you're going to let life unfold in the way that it unfolds and realize that that can bring you your highest outcome. That you might think it takes 90 days to achieve this, But in flow, you might attract and be attracted to someone, and in one conversation, you realize the answer and you can do it in 24 hours because you just didn't have that information before. So here's what I tell everyone, and it's how I live. I am a big strategic planner. I believe that's a very important, critical process of building a business. And I believe it's okay if you throw the entire strategic plan out in a second. So I go, you create your strategic plan, you get into flow, and then you find out what happens. And you let the path unfold. You let the path unfold. Right?
I realized before starting this podcast, I put up this huge, detailed, meticulous plan on how I would approach it. Then I started, and it didn't go to plan. And I had to literally, other than keeping the name and the branding, I had to just surrender to the process and adapt as I go. And it's beautiful. It's part of the journey.
Yes. And here's what I want you to know, and I'll give you an example. When I sold some companies, I spent a year and a half planning a massive trip. The first part was 4 months in the United States. And when I left, I was in Florida. When I left, I was going up 75. That's north. I had this whole plan by the day because that's how I was living then. And about 10 miles before I got to 10, where I was going to turn east, that was in the plan, I started feeling, that didn't feel quite right. Now, I've got 10 minutes to make this major decision that I've been planning this trip detailed for a year and a half, right? And when I got to I-10, I metaphorically, I don't want you to think I was impacting the environment. I metaphorically threw the entire plan out. And I just kept on going up 75. And now none of the plan was part of it at all. But do you know what happened? First of all, I learned to live in flow. And it turned out I had a lot to learn. And I stopped making reservations at hotels 7 days in advance because I realized I have no idea where I'm going to be in 7 days. So that's not going to work. But there will be a hotel or a bed and breakfast or whatever. Something will be there. It's not like I won't have a place to stay, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was a majority of the places I had outlined I wanted to go. Now, some of them, like when I didn't go right east on 10, I never made it to Washington, D.C. or any of those places. Some of them disappeared and never went to New York City. But I went to many of the places that were already there, but they were at a different timing. And this was fall, so I ended up in like the Adirondacks and the Green Mountains and the White Mountains of, Maine and up the coast and into the Maritimes in Canada, because I was going to Canada. And for a solid month, I was every day in a place that the leaves were turning, just because of the magic of how it unfolded, which would not have happened. And then one day when it was raining and the leaves started to fall, I had bought into this magical kingdom I was living in, right? This bubble. And I went, oh my God, fall's over. But fall for me, usually, like I'm in Colorado, fall is about 10 days that the leaves are at their peak. I was at the peak for a month. And I was constantly, I had 2 books. At that time, it was pre the internet. It was back in the 90s. I would call and get rooms, and it turned out I was everybody's last guest for the season. They were super happy. And I met all these amazing people, and I would get there, and things would unfold. Like I wasn't supposed to get dinner, and I'd have dinner with them. I'd stay up till midnight, and we'd have a drink, and I'd get to know these people I was only going to know once in my life. And we'd have these deeply amazing experiences with each other and these incredible conversations. The next day I'd get up, I'd get my breakfast like I was supposed to get, and 8 a.m. I was off on the road, right? All of that happened in the flow that was like magic. And so the second part is to being open. The first is be present, open to things happening differently than you had planned. Just open. There might be a better way. And what better than the universal field of energy called flow to open the right path? My personal motto is trust perfect timing. I've had that motto for over 30 years, and I do not believe I will be changing it. It's on my signature that I send out from Conscious Millionaire. It goes, trust perfect timing, comma, JV Crum the third, right? And because that's how I live. That's, like, and it's also like if somebody would, now you start thinking about who is your client. So I've been just talking about who is my client. Well, who is not my client? Someone who would like, oh no, I've got to be in this rigid world and I don't want to change any of my beliefs and I don't want to change any of my experiences, JV. I just want to make more money. Not my client. So I'm going, well, if you're going to take away all the things that I know how to open you to more of your potential and teach you how to make more money, and you want to throw all those out the window, you don't want to be open to those, I'm going to have a pretty hard time getting you to faster profits that you actually want, right? So the second one is you're just open. And then the third one is always make decisions and take actions that feel real to you. I call it authentic. So I have traveled the world a lot by myself, been to 40 countries, 5 continents. By the way, one of my outcomes in life, if you don't know of the Century Club, you have to go to 100 countries and territories. I will get there. But I travel to places, and I'm in a big city I've never been to, and it's midnight, and JV's like exploring. Not once have I been accosted. Not once have I been mugged. Not once have I had anything stolen. Not once have I been in any true danger. But it's because I'm constantly aware of everything that's around me. I'm present. And if I see like maybe 4 or 5 guys walking this way, and I go, doesn't feel right, I just cross the street, right? Because it doesn't feel authentic to go that way. Or I get to, we're at a 4-way, and I go, which direction should I go? And I kind of think about each one. Should I turn right? Should I go straight? Should I turn left? And something will feel right. I can feel it in my body. Everybody gets it at a different place. I have like more of a smooth musculature in my torso. And it's like, oh, that's right. Or I'll feel a little tingling around my head, and I go, oh, that's the right way. And if I start to turn, say, right, and I go, there's just something doesn't feel right, I don't go there. And all I know is I can't prove that there was something that might happen bad because I didn't go there, but nothing bad has ever happened. And I have traveled the world this way by myself and going all over cities that I don't know, and somehow it all worked because I paid attention. So I'm asking you, if you were to build your business that way, how much faster would you grow it? How much more profits would you make? How much more time would you end up being able to have for yourself? How much more fulfilled would you be? And how much bigger difference would you make for the people you're on the planet to make a difference for through your business? Because that's really, we call it, solving a problem. And that is what you're doing. You're solving a problem that makes a difference for people, but it's the one you're on the planet to solve. And that's why I gave you the example. If somebody doesn't want to tap into more of their potential, all right, that's fine. But I'm not going to be very effective working with you because I know how to help people tap into their potential. I had a client went from 1 to 2 million in 5 months. Why? Because it was tapping into more of his potential and I was guiding him how to do that. That's the magic I know how to do. But if that's not the magic you want, I am not the guide for you, right? But if that's what you want, I want to be the best guide on the planet because that's what I do. And that's what knowing your purpose is and staying true to it. And then those are the people you're on the planet to work with, and only work on attracting those people. And don't worry about the rest because they're supposed to work with somebody else. And that's not a judgment about one's better or not. It's about, I teach this path. This is what I do. Other people other people will say your whole answer is you need a new marketing approach. I teach a path that says that can be part of the answer, but it's certainly not the whole thing, because you're the bigger part of the answer. And so it's finding the people who want the path that you're teaching is really what being an entrepreneur is about. That it's all about living your purpose and connecting to higher potential and then doing something about it. And that without the fulfillment piece, the journey isn't even worth taking, except to learn that you need, like the journey I took that, brought me wealth at an early age was valuable in that I learned a lot about business. But it was also valuable because it told me what was missing. Because I got there and I thought the money was going to be everything. Because when I grew up, we didn't even know where all the food was coming from. I was taught not to ask for a candy bar. Literally, I talk about that in the book. When we go to the grocery store, because we didn't have the money to pay for it. Right? And my mom would tell me, I don't want people to think we're poor, so don't ask for it because we can't put it in the basket. Only things that are on my list are what we can buy. So then I would pray to God that Mom would put a candy bar on the list. I'm being honest. On the list. Like, God, please have Mommy put a candy bar on the list, right? And in some ways, you got to find humor in life, right? In some ways, at 5, I didn't know what a millionaire was. I just knew watching television, those people who were called millionaires were living in a lot better house than we were and seemed to have a lot of money to do a whole lot of stuff I wanted to do. And I imagined they could probably buy candy bars. So part of my becoming a millionaire is so I could buy the candy bar, right? It all kind of started with the candy bars. Like, there's got to be a solution to this problem. And that's the great thing about being a little kid. But, when you're an entrepreneur and you allow yourself to just have the innocence of believing that, like, for instance, this is something that actually people believe is not true, that anything is possible, right? I live from a place that anything is possible, that there are multiple solutions to every problem that I have, and that there is a solution and everything can be fixed, and you can find the answer. Those are things I just live with, and as a result, stuff happens. It's not like JV has this perfect life. Stuff happens. But I know there's a solution, and I know I can find it. And when I empower entrepreneurs to start thinking that way about everything, they stop stopping themselves from moving forward and instead start a momentum of moving forward. And that's the kind of shift that when you make that, all of a sudden you can open doors and you meet people that you never would have met, and you do strategic deals with other people, or you find clients that maybe you'd never even thought about working with, and you go, wow, and somebody would pay me this? Because a lot of times I work with people and it's not their skills. I'm not the guy who people come to and I change their skills. It's rare. That has been consistent. So I'm going, okay, I'm not on the planet to change people's skills. I'm on the planet to awaken them to their potential so they can do something with their skills and oftentimes get paid at a higher level, because that's part of the difference between working with 6, 7, 8-figure people. It's like at 8 figures, somebody paying you $100,000 is a perfectly reasonable and normal thing, because that's what they pay people to get results they want, right? But if somebody was making $50,000, it would make no sense whatsoever. Nor would it actually bring them value, because they wouldn't be in a place to do much with it. So when you open yourself to those kinds of possibilities, It's like when I say 7 years from now, I'm going to sell this and the tech company I'm going to build, and my part after taxes is going to be 100 million, and I already know how I'm going to use it, right? I'm nowhere close to being worth 100 million. And that doesn't bother me because it isn't about who I am today. It's about the vision of who I'll become tomorrow and the journey I'll take to get there. That to me is the most exciting part. And the people I work with are excited about that too. They want a vision of something bigger and they want to go get it. Those are the people I work with. That. Put up. Yeah, and that's why the formula, my three-part performance formula, is mindset, strategy, execution. Those are the only places that you can make money. There are no other ways to make money. Everything will fall into one of those three areas, and the one that's in common with them is mindset, because it is mindset, strategy, execution. So you need mindset. You need, well, what's the strategy? And the strategy is, how am I going to get the result? That's really what a strategy is. I mean, let's just demystify, all these fancy understandings of it. That's what it is. Then execution are the steps. So you go, oh, the strategy is that I'm just going to offer high-end one-on-one coaching. Let's just say that's something you do, right? So that's the strategy. I want to fill that, and then I'm going to fill something else. Then the steps are, how am I going to reach out, find the right person, have the first call, have a second call, and if somebody is right, welcome them into your family as a new client. So that's the execution part. And the execution part is, again, it's chapter 6 and it's chapter 7. I believe in having structured steps, and I also believe in being open that sometimes you don't need one of those steps, and that's okay. That sometimes you can have a meeting with somebody and they can become one of your highest paying clients in a single meeting. It doesn't need, say, 3 meetings that you've mapped out, right? That things can happen differently. Or you can be at a resort or a hotel, right? And you meet somebody in the lobby and you're having a conversation, and either they're your client or they know where your client is. Or they become someone that you do a project with, that you're just always open to what can occur, rather than closed and it can only fit into the box this way. That's the difference. That when we go back to what is really a great metaphor, is that there it was on I-75, the first 100 miles was I-75, 10 miles before I-10 where I'm supposed to turn east, I start feeling uneasy with this whole, and I planned this for 1.5 years, day by day. I had it all written out, right? Sitting next to me in my passenger seat where it belonged. And I effectively threw it all out. And my life changed in a very positive way because I did that. Because I learned over that 4 months how to live in flow. Right? And when I got to San Francisco, I went through Canada, and I'm down in San Francisco, and it's Thursday. It's Thanksgiving, which was Thursday. And I was staying at a boutique hotel I stayed at many times. What's interesting is, I'll tell a little bit of this story. So when I was in the Cape Breton Island area of Nova Scotia, I had read about a Tibetan Buddhist monastery called Gampo Abbey. So this is an interesting story. The Cabot Trail, I think, is 162 kilometers, and it's, the leaves were turning. It was just magical. I'm driving in, and I had a Grand Cherokee at that time. I have a Grand Cherokee now. I happen to like Grand Cherokees. On the right, I happened to be looking right. There was a sign maybe 2 feet tall, wooden, that says Campo Abbey, and there's a little dirt road right after it. First of all, had I been looking left, my whole life would be different. I never would have gone to Campo Abbey. Now listen to this. This is the flow stuff I'm talking about, right? I'm in flow. I'm in such a positive... You can think of flow as just being in this heightened positive energy, right? Because that's what it is. I was looking right, and I go, oh, I had read about that in planning my journey. I had read about it and wanted to go there. But I was no longer following anything. I wasn't reading my map for myself, right? So I go down this dirt road that's maybe a mile. I arrive at Campo Abbey. Pema Chodron, if you ever heard of her, is the head of Campo Abbey. I went in, and I got there at exactly the moment they opened for 2 hours once a week for the public. And I stayed there the whole 2 hours and talked to them, and they had this retreat coming up in January and February. And I took the information, and that night I was like out in the boondocks. I went to a motel I found, kind of a mom and pop motel as I remember. And I'm reading all the stuff. And this is October. And the retreat is January, February. And I said, I want to go to this retreat. I really feel called to go to this retreat. I start calling them, because we did have cell phones. And going across Canada all the way to the west and starting down, going through Washington and Oregon to get to San Francisco and just ended up there for 10 days around Thanksgiving. I called them a total of 9 times. And a total of 9 times they told me no. Because I in no way qualified. A, I wasn't Buddhist. B, I had to have meditated for 6 months and I'd never meditated. I didn't meet any requirement they had. They said, you are not right for this retreat. And then, a week later, I'd call them again. And they go, no, you can't come. All right, I get to San Francisco, and in the same day, 2 things happen. I call them. It's the 10th time, right? Persistence, folks, can pay off, right? It's like, and they go, well, we actually had a meeting about you yesterday. I don't think the whole meeting was about me, but they brought me up at a meeting. And they said, we decided if you called back again, it was auspicious and you're supposed to come. So you can come. Right? So I paid them the fee. I don't remember if I gave them a credit card or how I did it. That same day, when I was in graduate work, getting my first master's, which was in clinical psychology, I knew of Esalen because Fritz Perls had lived there, and I was studying Gestalt therapy, which Fritz Perls created, and I went by it one time, but you had to have permission to come on. You had to have a reservation. So I called them that same day, and they had time open for an open space. I didn't have to take a course for 3 days. So after I've left San Francisco, it's only a couple of hours down to Esalen. I went to Esalen that I've been wanting to, which became a big part of my life. So I go to this Buddhist monastery January and February, and I get into Esalen to do their work study, which is how you get to stay there for a month. And then I was fortunate. It just worked that I was able to renew it twice. That's the most you can renew it. Not everybody gets renewed, but I got accepted. And I stayed there for 3 months, and then I had a 10-year relationship and created a scholarship for work scholars and all kinds of stuff, and had a great relationship with it. Now, here's a third part of what happened in San Francisco. And this is this flow stuff again, right? So I went to my concierge and I said, okay, I'm here for Thanksgiving. I want to go someplace really fancy, really nice. And he goes, they're all booked. But he calls the hotel that's on Union Square, St. Francis. I've also stayed there. And they had something going on, and I got in it. Well, it turned out when I got there, I walked about 6 blocks there, it was in the cafe, and I was all dressed up, and people were in jeans, and it was just, the ballroom was reserved for something else, which is where I thought it was. And there was nothing fancy or anything about it. I'm going, no, this isn't the experience I want. Now, I knew that the Mark Hopkins, which is Powell Street, kind of goes almost straight up for a number of blocks. And at Nob Hill, you've got the Mark Taper. And at the top, you got the Mark Hopkins restaurant, which is the whole top floor. And I knew that was the fancy place I really wanted to go. Into my mind immediately comes a statement to tell the hostess. Here it is. I'm the gentleman you've been waiting for, the one without a reservation. So I huff and puff all the way up Powell Street, get there, go up in the elevator, get off, and there's a small lobby, and this is like maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So people are just bitching to each other because what happens, I've been to a lot of these things on holidays at nice hotels, is that by the time you get to the afternoon, you're an hour or so behind because people have stayed longer than that 90 minutes you thought they were going to stay. And so I went up to it was a hostess, and I said that, exactly those words. And she looks at me, and she says, give me a moment. She goes away, comes back. She says, could you come with me? And I said, sure. She takes me over to the bar that's in the corner that, by the way, has the best view. And there were 4 high, seats. And she goes, if we sat you a place here, would this work? She's asking my permission, like, am I going to accept this for my non-reservation? And I looked out the window and I thought, yeah, this is going to work. I was there like 3 or 4 hours. I met all these people who came to the bar before their reservations. I got to be friends with the bartender. He did a little etching that he made copies of a street in San Francisco. He gave that to me. And I had the most amazing time sitting at that bar with the best view in the whole restaurant, because I received that information, which is a download you're talking about, because I was in a flow state. And then, here's the important part, folks. When you get inspired action to take, you must take it immediately. Do not wait. This happens in my life all the time. Call this person and something miraculously happens. I've learned, don't wait to call them, right? And so I had this most amazing experience because I was in flow. And if I weren't in flow, weren't living in flow, I would have gotten to this cafe that people were having hamburgers in, wasn't the experience I wanted, and I would have just stayed. Or I would have left and been maybe kind of depressed. What a horrible Thanksgiving I had. Instead, I had one of the most memorable Thanksgivings I've ever had, because this was 25 years ago or something. I'm going, folks, this is how it works. This is how you build your business. This is how you get the life of your dreams. This is how life works. And only by opening up to all these kinds of potentials that are naturally a part of who you are. There is nothing special about me. The only thing different from me and other people is that I live in a high state of awareness, and so these things happen for me. That is the only difference. And when you learn to do that, which is a skill, and you open to all of that, you can live this way as well. Everyone on the planet can live this way. And that's my ultimate dream, is to create a higher conscious civilization here through all these 18 to 25-year-olds I trained to be conscious leaders, to go out in the world, and from 100 countries, I figure that's enough seeds to plant, that people can start waking up and realizing every person can have quality food, every person can have housing, can have education, can have healthcare. These can become basic human rights. And really, that's the outcome I want for this planet, is that we can all live in that way, and we can all have wealth, because wealth isn't a one-time pie, and I think most people think of it that way. Wealth comes, there is some wealth that comes from trading a half a point on the internet, on Wall Street. As a little bit of wealth is made that way. But true, abundant, expanding wealth comes from one thing: adding value to other people's lives. That is how wealth is created. And that's your job as an entrepreneur. And when you add that value coming out of your inner purpose, doing something that is the vision you're on the planet to bring about, not only can you create that highest wealth and that highest impact, but you can also create what is really the most important for you on your journey, is that life that is fulfilling to you. And if you go to my homepage even, consciousmillionaire.com, right up at the top, there are 2 figures. What do you want, right? You want money, impact, and fulfillment. How do you get there? Mindset, strategy, and execution. It's the only path that will give you it at all. And I would submit that every person on this planet, entrepreneur or not, really in some way wants money so they can pay for their life and pay for the journey they're here for. They want to feel at the end of the day, and especially at the end of their life, they want to look back and go, my life mattered. I did something that made a difference. And they want to be fulfilled. I think those are the 3 things every person on this planet is wanting. I just happen to work with entrepreneurs, so I want to help them arrange their business and their life so they can get them all.
Yeah. There was after mouth.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I rarely do this, but I feel like what we have provided today, is the beginning of a path. And if that's the kind of path you want to take to building your wealth, to making your impact, and beginning a life that's truly going to fulfill you, where you have the time to spend with your kids, where you have the time to live your hobbies, then just give me a call. I'm going to give you my cell phone. And don't worry, I turn it off at night. So if you call, I won't be bothered. You can call anytime you want. Or you can text. And text is even better, because just text me your name, why you want to talk, and give me the URL to your website. And it's always fun to do this when I do it, because I do personally call back. There's no assistant that's going to call you. This is like, we're just going to set up a time and we're going to talk and get to know each other. And I'm going to look for ways that I can provide you value in that time that we're talking. I want to help you in any way that I can. And here's my cell phone. It's 303. So you can put a +1 in it if you're not in the United States. +1 303 641 0401. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, so that's Mountain Time. But again, text me is really the easiest way, and I will call you back. I call everybody back when I make an opportunity like this, so we can just connect. And I'd love to hear about what your business. Tell me, is it 6, 7, 8 figures? Whatever you want to share in that text just kind of gives me, so this is what's going on. And I'll go look at your website before I get back with you, so I have an idea of what you're doing. And you're welcome to look at mine at consciousmillionaire.com. That'll give you a good overview of what I'm doing. Oh, well, thank you. We're just here, we're all just here to do the same thing. We're here to live our purpose. And I think when we all on this planet are living our purpose, we can create a magical world that I call a higher conscious world, a world in which everybody can win. And that's a world that I find really compelling. Is why should some people win and other people lose? Why don't we set it up so everybody wins? And I think that's a possibility. And I think the time is now. I think we're ready. Technology is growing exponentially, and what that means is in 30 years, it will change 1,000 times. You think AI is disruptive? Hold on to your seat, right? Because we don't even know what it'll be in 3 years. But consciousness on this planet, which is a place I dwell, it's where I live, is also evolving exponentially. And it means consciousness on this planet in 30 years can be 1,000 times different. So when people tell me, well, how could this solve the war in Ukraine or what's happening in the Middle East? And I go, when we just have a 1% of people start living in this flow, in synchronicity, and living in this way, connected and getting downloads as just a way of living, right? Just 1% of us living this way, and it'll start to transition very quickly. You know the story of the 100 monkeys. So there were 100 monkeys on islands that learned to do something, and they had no direct physical contact with each other. But when there were 100 different islands where monkeys were doing this, because we're all connected in this energy field. I think we can agree on that. There is an energy field. We are part of this energy field. That goes back to Einstein. Everything is energy, and energy, I'm telling you, is information. And they were sharing information. That's how this happened. And then all the monkeys across the planet could do that same thing. We are the same thing. We are human beings. And when we start to awaken, and it doesn't take but a small percentage of us, the whole planet will start to awaken. And isn't that the journey we're really all on? Awakening so that we can all live in a higher and better place, so that people aren't living in poverty or on the street. But through the magic of us living at a higher level, we all live at a higher level. That's really my dream. That's why I'm here.
Good.
Well, my blessings to everyone. And I want you to know it's my privilege to be here. It's my honor, because this is why I'm here. This is what gives me my greatest fulfillment and joy comes from somebody else waking up and starting to do something they couldn't do the day before, and starting to impact people and build the wealth so that they have the independence to live their life, to give to the causes they want, to have the home and the journey and the vacations and the times with their family that can bring them great, deep fulfillment. That is what is so important.
That's beautiful. JV, thank you so much. And this has been a memorable episode that I will perhaps never forget.